back to another episode of Cooking with Olive Oil. Before we get started, we wanted to thank everyone who purchased after our last video. Thanks to you, we were able to donate 15% of sales to the Farm Worker Project, who puts the money right back into the pockets of farm workers in California. As I'm sure you all know, the situation is only getting worse in California with the recent wildfires and the air quality. So we really appreciate your support and are going to continue to look for opportunities to support our community.
That being said, we were able to tune into a special series last night through UC Davis's Robert Mondavi Food Institute. It's called Sips and Bites, and last night focused on beekeepers in California, specifically Sola Bee Farms. Not only did they do a little honey tasting, which was fun to witness, but they also talked about the negative impact of these latest fires on some of the beekeepers in California. Some beekeepers have lost entire hives, others have lost their facilities. So we are going to put a donation link down below to a few GoFundMe accounts that work to support these beekeepers. So if you feel so inclined, you can donate directly. We depend on bees, just like farmers, to provide the food that is on our tables, and it's important that we continue to support these communities that provide so much to us. So we will leave that below and we can get into today's video. We are making a simple pesto pasta. We are doing it old school. We're going to make the pesto in a mortar and pestle. So we're actually both going to try this out. Helen's going to use a stone mortar and pestle and I'm going to use an olive wood one so we can join them at the end and make a really nice pesto pasta.
Before we get into the actual grinding, the reason that we're using the mortar and pestle this time is because we've recently been getting into Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat,
The Netflix series. There's a book also.
We watched the episode where they make pesto the traditional way in Italy, and we thought that it was really intriguing. Usually we just use a blender and throw all the ingredients in, but we really wanted to try this out and see if it has any different qualities to it.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of follow the way that Samin Nosrat does it in the series with the Italian grandmother. So we're going to start out with our pine nuts. Yeah. We're doing half and half here, so I'm just gonna eyeball this. That's probably like half.
Yeah.
Up in here. And we're just going to each grind these pine nuts into a fine paste. And then after that, we'll add the basil. And we are going to use our Jaeger family olive oil in this recipe. And we chose that one because it is one of our most complex oils after the Napa Valley blend. And we wanted to do a complex oil because we're not adding anything into the pasta aside from pesto. So we wanted that complexity to come through in the pasta. But if you have a mild oil you're working with, you can add a green like arugula or something with a little bit of kick and spice to add the complexity elsewhere. And I think I already hear the water boiling.
Yeah, I do. We should turn it down. One of the things that I love about pesto is that you can really use it with pasta as the base to add any kind of veggies you have on hand to it. And so like Emily was mentioning, you can pair the olive oil that you're using to what the veggies are you have on hand to really make a well-balanced bowl of yummy pesto pasta.
Yeah, we were thinking about adding in some veggies to this one, but since we're doing the pesto in a different style than we usually do, we wanted to just keep it that simple so that we can really taste the difference with the pesto and have that kind of be like the main star of the dish.
My hand's already hurting.
That one has a little bit less control. I didn't do that on purpose. I gave you that.
So rude.
I said I did it.
Typical.
So I didn't. This is one of the olive wood modern pestles that our mom used to import from Italy.
And sell in her store.
Yeah, that we've kept for I don't know how many years.
And it still looks amazing.
Yeah, that's the good thing about olive wood. You treat it nicely and you oil it occasionally and it can last forever. Okay, so mine is already kind of getting into like a little paste-like form.
Mine is too.
The next step,
I'm sticking to it.
struggling. So I think we're figuring out that if you can use a smaller pestle, it's better because this one fits like very snugly into the mortar and I think it's just kind of a big mess over there.
Yeah, it's a little hard to manage, but we're gonna make it work.
Let's make it work. Okay, so both of our pine nuts are totally pulverized and kind of creating this little paste-like substance. So at this point, we're going to add in the basil leaves. And in Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, in that episode, she actually recommends that you use a coarser salt as well along with the basil leaves because that helps to break down the leaves. So we're going to do that, but you don't have to add in that much salt just because we're going to add in some Parmesan, which is already naturally salty. So we're just gonna pull off the stems here and shove as much basil in here as we can and get to grinding.
Oh my god, it already smells so
I
good.
know, it smells delicious.
Basil is releasing all of its wonderful scents as we pull it apart from its stem.
Another fun way to add in that complexity if you don't have a complex oil on hand is to use a green in the actual pesto versus adding it after the fact. So a few months ago when they were in season, we were using dandelion greens and making this dandelion green pesto, and we used our Wallace Estate oil for that because it's super mild. So that gave it a nice complexity and like this bitter aftertaste that was really good in pasta.
You also see a lot of arugula pestos out there for similar reasons.
Yeah, and also adding in nuts can do that depending on the nut you're using. Like walnuts give a nice bitterness as well. This is a labor of love here.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, you know what? What if you rinsed off the top of this and used that?
That's a good idea.
Another fun addition to pesto is one of our flavored oils. I've used garlic before, or lemon, obviously basil, olive oil too. You can add, and that adds a nice fresh basil flavor.
We've used the basil olive oil before when we were making pesto and we didn't have any basil on hand, but we had some. I think that actually one of the times we made with the dandelion greens, we made it just with the basil olive oil instead of fresh basil, and it turned out really well. So it's a good substitute.
Yeah, if you don't have basil but you have spinach or literally any other green, it's a nice combination. Also, I've added in lemon zest before, which is really nice. It makes a fresh, bright pesto. Okay, so my pesto is starting to really form into this nice paste. You can kind of see the basil breaking down. There are still some full leaves, so I'm just gonna keep going for a bit. How does yours look?
I think I'm a little bit behind you, but definitely getting there.
I'm just gonna try to get as much of this off the pesto as I can. Okay, and then I'm going to just grind this Parmesan directly into this, just kind of eyeballing it. You can't really ever have too much Parmesan in my opinion. So
Same.
I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah, and as you will have noticed, we haven't really been abiding by any quantity for this, and we're just gonna kind of go by taste, which is fun.
And by eyesight, I mean,
yeah.
this is something, if you know how much pasta you're making, you can kind of eyeball, and you can always add in more or less olive oil to make it thinner and be able to accommodate more pasta, or thicker for less pasta. So that's why we're not too concerned with the actual quantities we're making here. So we have our water on a soft boil, but since my pesto is almost done, I just have to add the olive oil. I'm going to put in the pasta, and you want to cook it until it's al dente. Since we haven't ever used this type of pasta before, I'm just going to keep kind of a watchful eye on it boiling and just test and see when it reaches the point of al dente. So I'm going to do that.
And it's important to remember to salt your water for the pasta, because we're going to be using a little bit of it to mix with the pasta and pesto as we're tossing it all together in the end. It helps as a thickening agent, adding a little bit of extra flavor.
Yeah, adding pasta water to any sauce you're making for pasta is seriously a game changer. I didn't start doing that until probably, like in the last year or so. And I didn't realize how much it helps because of the starch to really add a creaminess to any pasta dish. So I'm going to add some olive oil now to mine. We're just going to eyeball this as well. And at this point, this is when it's going to really start turning into more of like a true pesto sauce. It's all coming together and getting really creamy, and it smells incredible. Okay, at this point we're going to combine the two because they're both broken down to have the same consistency. So Kaylin's putting hers in mine.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, we would definitely recommend if you can get your hands on an olive wood mortar and pestle, or just a wooden one, this smaller pestle.
I think that's the key. This also has a very small bowl to it, so I think it's more for grinding salt and things like, or herbs, I guess. Not for making pesto.
So I'm just going to mix this a little bit more. It's looking really good, like it's almost there. And some of the basil is not completely broken down, but I actually think that will be
I think that's kind of part of it.
I'm just going to add a little bit more olive oil, and we'll probably end up adding the olive oil again once we plate.
Check on the pasta.
Okay, we've cleaned up our Parmesan mess a bit, and the pasta's actually ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and reserve 1 cup, I probably won't use that much, but 1 cup of pasta water. We're going to strain it, transfer it to this bowl, and add the pesto. Alright, so we're going to transfer the pasta into this bowl. And then add the pesto. Yeah, so you want to add the pesto? just going to mix this a bit before I add the pasta water. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of that water. Keep on mixing. And at this point, we can also add in some more Parmesan. And then we're also going to add in a little bit of olive oil. So a little bit more of that Jaeger family. Just right over the top here. And just continue to mix that in. So you don't need a lot of pasta water, but it does play an important role in making sure that everything combines well and that pasta sauce is emulsified. Since we salted the pasta water and we salted the pesto, we don't have to add any additional, as well as there's already saltiness in that Parmesan. You can see that it's a nice creamy consistency and the Parmesan has kind of melted into the pasta. So now we're gonna plate. Okay, so we've plated our pasta and now we're just going to add a tiny bit more Parmesan for good measure. And at this point you could add more oil if you want, but our sauce is pretty emulsified as is, so we're just gonna leave it. And there you go. That is our pici pasta with pesto. Alright, that's it for our second episode of Cooking with Olive Oil. We hope you enjoyed this video. We will be doing another Instagram poll to see what you want to see us make in the next video, but if you have any suggestions in the meantime, please feel free to message us.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.